Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I went up to Michigan and picked up a Wheeler and Wilson number 8. This one is dated 1883, which makes it 141 years old, 41, 42 years old. It's the oldest machine I have that works. The other machine that is the second oldest would be my lathe, and that one is 130 years old, and I make parts on that every day almost. So this was it came to me. I bought it, and nothing moved. So our presser foot adjustment knob, this was locked up. I pretty much just soaked it in WD-40 and set it by the wood burner to get warm because it was out in a garage that was very cold. So upon working with it, I realized the Wheeler and Wilson took a non-standard size shank needle. The length is very close to the standard, so I grabbed a 2 millimeter reamer and reamed out the needle bar nose to accept your standard Singer needles, and they work very well. I do have to, when I set the needle, I do have to check it with the bobbin to make sure the hook will grab it. I have to just adjust it a little bit, but it works, and I can just put standard needles in it. I don't have to be playing the eBay game buying 100-year-old needles. Our cloth patches up here were rotted and gone and full of rust. I got the tension all cleaned up, and I've had some issues with the tension just being a little fickle. Let's say that. And what helped me was these pads. I put fresh new felt pads in there, but what really helped me was just to soak them in oil. Just soak them in machine oil and then put them back in, and then everything was a lot more fluid. So that was one of the things. But this machine, the top tension, it runs very tight, and it's not like any other machine I've really worked on. Most of them use equal tension, and this one is very top tension happy. So that really threw me. I was beating my head against the wall for a long time trying to get it to sew right, and it just wasn't happening. As well as what else? Everything needed to be broken and readjusted. This was you had to find your friction points. This was really on there, and it needs to be tightened just a little bit more. But you would rotate the machine and you could feel it binding. And there was several different joints in here I had to open up, oil, and get moving properly. This thing was not sewing. It took me 5 hours of just beating my head against the wall to get it going. And I didn't do it all at once. I gave it maybe 2 hours here and found a problem there. But it's a good machine, and I did hook it up to electric. I did put a little anemic motor in there. I'll probably change it over to something a little more powerful, but for right now it works because I'm 6'4", and as this machine sat, look, if I tried to treadle it, my legs would barely fit under the machine as is, and not only that, I would be hunched over and miserable. It was pretty much a child-sized toy to me, but this was made for somebody smaller than a giant. So I put it up on stilts. It's in my living room. It's a very, very nice piece. I'll stop talking your ear off, but we'll go back and talk about Wheeler and Wilson a little bit. These machines were Singer's direct competitor at the time, and they're honestly machined a lot better than Singer's shit was back in the day. And if their marketing scheme was a little bit better like Singer's, Wheeler and Wilson would still be around today, and they would be the common name instead of Singer, which I really don't even consider Singer's a sewing machine. I would just call him a Clark's machine because he's the guy that really ran the business and made Singer what it was. So I call Singer's Clark's. But that's just me because I read a little bit, and you got to pay the man the respect that what he did. He made Singer. But these guys had two major patents. They patented the 4-motion feed dog. So your standard feed dogs that are driving your fabric, Wheeler and Wilson came up with it. And the rotary hook that catches Wheeler and Wilson developed the rotary hook. So those are two really major patents and designs that Wheeler and Wilson came up with and nobody else did. So, but we'll run it a little bit and see how she goes. Give her a kickoff. And the mechanics are very pretty in this. I had to machine that brass plate because it was missing, but it's got the glass foot, which is there. I'll pull our workpiece aside, and some nice, tight, beautiful stitching. So your bobbin is in here. A little bagel bobbin's cute. But the real workings of this machine is that hook, that rotary hook that loops around and catches and makes the loop. It's actually very pretty when you look at it mechanically. And not only that, there is, I'm going to skip and we'll open her up and I'll show you. Okay, so here are our bottom workings of this machine, and I'll rotate it so you can watch the thread get caught by the hook. It's quite interesting. So this wheels down, the hook is just about to catch it. Hook's got it, and it whips around the bobbin case and pulls it tight. So, and then your 4Motion feed dogs are right here, and what drives these is this little cam here. And it's quite neat. There's a little cam, but then it's got a, the actuation of it is a 4-sided flipper. So every time when you hear is a chunk, the chunk you're hearing is the 4-sided cam, or, you know, little lobe flipping every time it cycles to cycle the dog. So that's what you're hearing when you hear a chunk. You're hearing that flip. So not only that, the main shaft of this machine is, you know, straight going back. It's offset up here. These are two different bores. So this machine would have been bored through here, stopped, and then this bore is offset. It's offset and you get a whipping motion by the linkage. So you see this, it speeds up and slows down. Speeds up. So that's how they get that whipping motion, is the two offset shafts. See, if I spin it at a constant speed, whip, whip. So these are really neat, and I'm worked on them, and I've learned a lot. I'm in the machine shop all the time, and if anybody I don't know why they don't show these engineering students. It seems like people that go to engineering school are more interested in cultivating morons than actual proficient mechanical minded people. But this is these are works of art, and what Wheeler and Wilson did was absolutely incredible for what they had to do at the time. But the two patents that, you know, I think they did really great was that rotary hook. It's brilliant. And then the 4Motion feed dogs. These guys are the ones that created the standard feed dog system that all sewing machines use. So I really think that's neat. I'll probably get a W9, but I do think a W9 was mimicked by White Rotary, the FR series. I really do. I'm kind of excited to see. I'll probably take one apart, but the FR series, the White Rotary, is my absolute favorite. And there are a dime a dozen. They're made in Cleveland, Ohio. But those are a king on the sewing machine because they're smooth and they just operate very efficiently. But so this tensioner was kind of a bug. Soak those pads in oil. And that's, you know, my advice for what it's worth. And then I put two little magnets up here in a piece of cloth to stick my bobbin because it would jerk, and then I would get a loop of thread, and then a loop of thread would get caught in mechanics, and I'd be sewing along, and all of a sudden everything just falls apart, and I look over here and I've got a wad, just a mess. So I just keep a little magnet on here just to keep a little bit of tension on the spool so it doesn't run away and make a loop, and then that loop gets caught in all the mechanics and the workings, and you end up with this mess. So, but that's it, my Wheeler Wilson, and it's back to life. I've honestly just had to run it and oil it and soak the whole thing in oil every port, and then put the electric motor on low and just let it cycle for, a couple hours, and it really freed everything up. I've actually, of the oil that's dumping out of it is just gross. So all the oil that was in it pretty much turned to carbon, and what's coming out of the machine is just gook. And it's working freer and sewing better and better, and the feed docks are working more free. I've had to replace some springs. I've had to rebore the needle bar. I've had to do just a few things in the machine shop to bring this back up to speed, but it is back from the dead in my living room as a showpiece and sewing. And for Christmas, my present was a nice Wheeler & Wilson little storage box for all my trinkets from my girlfriend. What a doll.